Jewish faith was allowed to keep going, and the people could still worship as they wanted. So it was right for people to pay taxes, using the coin with the government stamp on it. Thirdly, we give to God what is his. Well, what do we give to God? What is it that has the stamp or mark of God on it? The answer is we do. Each and every one of us here today were made in the image of God and bear his mark. So we give our taxes to the government and ourselves to God. There is no conflict in this until the government acts or forces people to act in a way contrary to God's law. Then we must act in accordance with God's law and not man's, because when the state only exists in this world, God's law exists in this world and the next. This story happened over 2,000 years ago. What could it mean today when so much has changed? But has it? In many ways, nothing has changed, and the answer Jesus gave to the Herodians and Pharisees still applies. Firstly, we cannot act as a society without some form of law or order of government. We couldn't possibly manage to support the frail and the vulnerable without some system in place. Yet while the laws of the land should serve to protect our human lives and our future, it does not and cannot support our spiritual life and spiritual future. To support God's people, to teach about them, that is the job of the church. To work alongside the government to ensure it acts fairly, justly, and in accordance with God's laws. It is also right that we should pay for the service that government provides, however much as we might grumble. But we don't have the freedom that the Pharisees seem to have had to choose not to pay taxes. If we choose not to pay, we are likely to end up in prison. And if no one paid anything, where would the hospitals, schools, and all the other things needed to make life run smoothly come from? Like the Jews, we don't seem to have much choice over the government and the way it runs our country. Often it seems as far away and as dictatorial as ancient Rome, a pagan, unscrupulous, unelected government. And while we get little choice in our paying our taxes, we do have a total freedom choice in what we give to God. I was asking some friends this week, I said, I'm preaching on render unto Caesar. How many of you know how it ends, that sentence? Come on, someone must have listened to the gospel reading. Stuart, you're not allowed to say anything.
Unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's.
Someone was listening anyway. But when I asked my friends, they didn't have a clue. Yes. But we do have people who do listen to the gospel. That's the main thing, isn't it? But it doesn't help the gospel said emperor and not Caesar on it either. This is where we have our choice. This is where we can decide whether or not to pay. Our government may have tax rates of 20%, 40%, 50%. But God only has one rate, 100%. When we give ourselves to God, we have to give ourselves 100%. 10%, 90%, or just on Sundays doesn't count. We have to give ourselves totally to Him all day and every day. But there is one major difference in what we pay in taxes and what we pay to God. If we find that we cannot find the money to pay our taxes or forget them, then we face a punishment. If we forget to give God His due, He doesn't send us in the bailiffs. He forgives us that debt. He allows us to start again. You may want to cheat on a government you hate, but do you want to cheat on someone that loves you utterly, and what you give does not even begin to repay what they have done for you. But what exactly does he want from us? Giving ourselves to God sounds vague and woolly. Just what does he want? I think Jesus gave us the answer when he asked what the most important commandment was. He told us that the most important commandment was, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. The second commandment was to love one another. We take the commandment to love one another as one of the basic ways to live as a Christian. But there is no way we can live this way if the foundation of the way we live is not based on having the love of God at the heart of who we are and in everything we do. With the love of God at the centre of our being, then things on this world become less important, passing and transient, as we learn that God's love is forever. We can still support and pay taxes to a government that provides the framework of life. We can still oppose that same government when it works unfairly, unjustly. We can still obey the laws of the land when they work with God's law and oppose them when they don't. We can still do all this as long, and only as long, as God comes first. Remember Jesus' complete answer. Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's. There was no either, no, or, but and. We have to do both. But God's law comes first. If there's something against God's law, we have to stand up against it, wherever we find it. On the street, in the church, in the government, wherever. The question Jesus was asked could have been, whose side are you on, Israel or Rome? Jesus' reply was not Israel, it was not Rome. His answer was, on God's side. Could also have been, who do you love? How would we answer that? Whose side are we on? Who do we love? This world, a place of growing discontent, a place where people put themselves, money and power before the care for others. A place where more and more people seek gratification just for the moment. Or God's world, a place where love grows, a place where you are just as valued as your neighbour, a place where we can live in peace and forgive our enemies, and be forgiven when we fall. What would our answer be? Amen. We now come to